Imagine being sealed alive inside a stone wall with no chance of escape. You are left there all alone with no food or water while you quietly wait for death to claim you. This and many other terrifying punishments were an integral part of ancient civilizations. Back then, punishments were a public spectacle with a goal to not only punish the offender, but to send a message to everyone watching. Today, we are going way back in history to look at 7 of the most bizarre and mind-boggling punishments from the ancient world, and trust me, you won't be the first to doubt if they were ever real because of how bizarre they were. Before I start, I must tell you that historical reports of events might get exaggerated at times, but you can trust me to tell you which details are well documented and which have been sensationalized, because I know you care about history, and that's the reason you are here. Now let's start with a punishment that perhaps might be the most horrifying, but I leave you to be the judge of that. Before I get into the details, please take a second to tap on the subscribe button. Your support means a lot to me. Ancient Persia, 401 BCE. The ancient Persian Empire was one of the largest, stretching from Egypt to India, but it had one story that stuck over centuries. It is the story of the scaphism punishment. The name comes from the Greek word for boat. According to the Greek historian Plutarch, the condemned person was stripped down and strapped between 2 narrow wooden boats, more like a boat sandwich if you think of it that way, with just the victim's head, hands and feet poking out. Then they did something strange. The executioners force-fed the victim with large amounts of milk and honey until he was bloated and sick. They didn't stop at that. They went on to slather more honey and milk all over the exposed part of the victim's body and then left him on a stagnant pond. Soon the flies began to arrive, then more and more insects that bite and sting. The trapped victim couldn't escape or brush them off. Now take a minute to imagine the horror. As days passed, insects began to breed in the filth and laid eggs on the victim's body. Ancient writers claimed the punishment continued as the person slowly weakened beneath the relentless swarm. Many historians have doubted the accuracy of Plutarch's recount of events as he was Greek, and Greeks were longtime enemies of Persians. Greek authors often portrayed Persian rulers as cruel tyrants, sometimes accurately, other times not as much. Historians remain divided about it. Some believe it existed, while some argue that the story became more gruesome every time it was told. Whether or not every detail Plutarch recorded is accurate, the story has remained through 2,000 years of history. From Persia we move to Greece, where we tell the chilling story of the brazen bull. Before we recount this horrifying story, I'm a small YouTube creator with a deep passion for telling stories that may have been forgotten. Please support me by liking this video and subscribing to my channel, as I always bring you well-researched stories like these. Thank you for your support. Now let's move on. Ancient Greece, 570 BC. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see this image? If you are like most others, I am sure you would have thought, oh, that's a masterpiece of sculpture. I'm sorry to tell you that this isn't art, rather it's an execution device, or at least that's what history tells us. Let's go back to ancient Greece for a minute during the 6th century BC. In the city of Acragas in Sicily. Phalaris was the ruler at that time, famous for his tyranny and ruthlessness. Whether the stories about him are true is another matter entirely. Perillos, a skilled Athenian metalworker, came to Phalaris with his latest invention. He had built what he believed would be the most terrifying execution device ever imagined, a life-sized bronze bull. The bull was hollow on the inside and had hinged doors on the side. A network of tubes ran from inside the bull up through its neck to emerge from the nostrils and mouth. The prisoner would be locked inside the bull and a fire lit beneath it. As the metal slowly heated, the air inside would become unbearable, and soon enough the prisoner would begin screaming. As the victim screamed, the cries supposedly echoed through the instrument and emerged from the bull sounding like a bellow. Whether that acoustic system actually worked is something historians continue to debate. Recorded accounts have it that Phalaris ordered Perillos to climb inside his own invention. The doors were shut and a fire lit beneath it. Ancient sources differ slightly on what happened next. While some say Phalaris let Perillos out before he died, then threw him off a cliff, others claim he died inside his own invention. Either version ends the same for Perillos. Sources also have it that Phalaris was eventually overthrown by his own people, who reportedly used the bull on him in return. Like many ancient stories, historians can't confirm every detail. Was the brazen bull ever used? No one knows for certain. Historians are divided about it. But what we can say for certain is the ancient world absolutely used bronze vessels in acts of torture and execution. Ancient Rome, 6th century BC to 4th century AD. Of all the punishments we would discuss, this is perhaps the most familiar one. It wasn't an unusual sight to see crosses lined on a Roman road for miles to serve as a message and warning. It was the empire's ultimate display of power. The historical record on it is unambiguous. We have detailed accounts from multiple Roman writers, legal texts, and even archaeological evidence including an actual crucified skeleton found near Jerusalem. It would interest you to know that Roman citizens were almost never crucified. Roman historian Cicero called crucifixion the summum supplicum, meaning the extreme penalty, and wrote that even the word should be kept far from the eyes, ears and thoughts of Roman citizens. The punishment was considered too degrading for citizens and was reserved for slaves, pirates, rebels, and those accused of threatening the authority of the empire. Victims were flogged and forced to carry the crossbeam through crowded city streets while people watched and mocked. The journey itself was part of the punishment. Then came the cross. Some of the victims were tied to it while others were nailed. Some crosses resembled a capital T, while others looked more like the cross we are familiar with today. Execution sites were carefully chosen. The Romans wanted places with visibility where everyone would see and get the message. Ancient writers described victims surviving for hours and sometimes even days. Death came not from blood loss, but from slow suffocation, as the position of the arms made breathing difficult. To the Romans, prolonged suffering served as a lesson to everyone watching. One of the most famous mass crucifixions followed the slave revolt led by Spartacus in 71 BC. The Romans reportedly crucified 6,000 captured slaves along the Appian Way, which was the main road leading to Rome. If you think crucifixion was Rome's strangest punishment, you are in for a big surprise, as the Romans had a bizarre punishment for those who killed their parents. Ancient Rome, 3rd century BC. For the Romans, some crimes were so unforgivable that you didn't just deserve death, but you deserved to be erased from memory forever. Killing of a parent is one of such crimes. Family formed a core foundation of Roman society, so killing one's parent was regarded as a direct attack on the foundation and entire social order. It was an offence against nature itself, and the punishment reflected this. The penalty for such a crime was poena cullei, meaning the penalty of the sack. This punishment is documented in Roman legal texts, and it is said that the condemned was sewn inside a large leather sack. The sack also contained 4 animals: a dog, a rooster, a monkey, and a snake. Although there's no clear explanation for the choice of animals, some sources say each animal symbolically represents the crime's moral dimensions, while others believe the combination was simply to create chaos in the sack. The sack was then thrown into a river. The Romans believed this punishment denied the condemned 2 important things: a proper burial and contact with the earth. Burial rites were treated with enormous respect by the Romans. Even executed criminals often received some form of burial, but this wasn't the case here. The condemned disappeared beneath the water, separated and rejected by society and nature forever. You are still watching this video, and this tells me you are a lover of history and forgotten stories. I implore you to join this community of history lovers. Tap on the subscribe button. Let's build this community together. Now we move away from Rome to Imperial China. Imperial China, 900 AD to 1905 AD. Lingchi is translated in English to mean death by 1,000 cuts, or the lingering death. The practice is well documented in Imperial Chinese legal codes across multiple dynasties. It was a punishment reserved for only the most serious crimes like treason or murder. Crimes so heinous that ordinary execution wasn't enough, but the condemned had to be erased from history. The condemned was tied upright, and the executioner made careful, methodical cuts, not with the aim to kill immediately, but to prolong suffering and ensure death came slowly. Although this wasn't always the case, as historical records suggest that executioners sometimes tried to shorten suffering rather than prolong it, depending on the circumstances. Despite its name, victims were not literally subjected to 1,000 cuts. The number was rather symbolic, as large numbers represented completeness in Chinese culture. But lingchi wasn't only about physical pain, it reflected deeply held cultural beliefs. Traditional Chinese society placed great importance on preserving the body whole, even after death. Lingchi ensured that the condemned had no dignity in death. The condemned was denied complete burial. The name was struck from records in an attempt to erase the person from history. It wasn't until 1905 that the Qing dynasty officially abolished lingchi, meaning it ended within living memory of people our grandparents' generation might have known, recent enough to be photographed. Ancient Rome, 700 BC to 394 AD. Imagine standing inside a small stone chamber with barely enough room to move your body. The opening that lets in light slowly grows smaller and smaller as brick after brick is being laid until you are in utter darkness, alone. This is one punishment that crosses many civilizations and centuries and is well documented. Unlike other punishments we have seen so far that is carried out before cheering crowds, immurement was treated with profound solemnity. The condemned was sealed alive inside a wall or chamber and left there to die with little or no food. Its use on Vestal virgins is well documented in ancient Rome. Vestal virgins were priestesses who took a vow of chastity, and their purity was considered essential to the safety of the Roman Empire. Roman laws forbade the direct shedding of a Vestal's blood, so when a Vestal broke her vow, she was led to a small underground chamber just outside the city walls. She was given a lamp and a small amount of bread and water, just enough for Rome to maintain that it hadn't directly killed her. Then the entrance was sealed. Imagine being in darkness and absolute silence, the claustrophobia, the knowledge that no one is coming to save you and that the world had moved on without you. Immurement was a punishment, not just for the body, but for the mind as well. We are still in Rome, where we see our last punishment, which was one of history's most brutal display of power. Ancient Rome, 2nd century BC to 4th century AD. The Romans understood, perhaps better than any other civilization before them, that the performance of power was as important as power itself, and nothing performed power quite like the arena. The Romans called it damnatio ad bestias, which means condemnation to the beasts. This is one of the best documented punishments in the ancient world. There are extensive texts and legal documents to support this. Even archaeological evidence at the Colosseum itself, including the animal holding areas beneath the arena floor, that millions of visitors still visit to this day. Those sentenced to the beasts included murderers, prisoners of war, enemies of the state, and in certain periods, Christians who refused to renounce their faith. The victims were sent into the arena unarmed against wild animals like lions, leopards, bears, and even wild boars, while the large crowd of spectators watched and cheered at the unfolding entertainment. This shouldn't be confused with gladiatorial combats, as gladiators were trained professionals who were equipped and armoured. The condemned criminals were unarmed and helpless, and fed to the animals like prey. The practice declined with the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and was formally prohibited by Christian emperors in the 4th and 5th centuries as Christianity spread through the empire. Today, in much of the world, justice emphasises due process and the protection of human rights. That progress didn't happen overnight. It took centuries of debate and reform to get to where we are now. So tell me, of all the punishments we covered today, which one shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading all of them. Also, let me know where you are watching from. Just before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. In my next video, we'll be exploring a different topic from history that will leave you wondering what was really going on in that era. Meanwhile, you can check out some of my other videos on strange events from history. I'll see you in the next episode of The Mystic Explainer.